So, do you know which were the best games at this World Cup? Of course, when India beat Pakistan at the MCG. No. Football World Cup. Let's have a look together then.
Before we begin, I would just like to say that among the 64 games of this World Cup in Qatar that just concluded, these are the games that I consider as a top 5 games of them all. At number 5, we got the Group G fixture between Cameroon and Serbia. In a group that included Brazil and Switzerland as the other two teams, it was Cameroon and Serbia who gave us one among the best games of the tournament. Although a draw, this game was a high scoring one with goals on either side of the half. It was Cameroon who scored the opening goal, but they ended up conceding 2 in stoppage time of the first half itself. Both teams had lost their opening game of the group, so this game was a must win in order to keep their hopes alive of advancing to the next round. In the opening minutes of the second half, Serbia had extended their lead. While sitting on this comfortable 2-goal advantage, Serbia were taken by surprise by Cameroon's resilience when Cameroon scored 2 of their own in the next 10 minutes. Both teams continued to look for a winner right till the end of regulation time, but the winner never came. Nevertheless, it gave us one of the most enthralling games of the tournament. Ultimately, this draw meant neither Serbia nor Cameroon had enough points to qualify for the next round after the final group game. Serbia went down against Switzerland, whereas Cameroon did manage to pull an upset win over Brazil, but it wasn't enough for them to advance. So that's Cameroon versus Serbia at number 5. Moving on to number 4, we got the round of 16 fixture between Spain and Morocco. Morocco had already pulled an upset win over Belgium in their group game to top Group F and qualify for the round of 16. They were yet to concede a goal in the whole tournament. They had only conceded an own goal against Canada, which doesn't exactly count. Having said that, most would have said that this is how far Morocco would go in this tournament. They will definitely won't go beyond the round of 16, right? In this game, thanks to their impregnable defense, Morocco defended every Spanish onslaught. Moreover, the Spaniards were uncoordinated in their attacks, which helped Morocco. All they needed was maybe score on the counter, which they couldn't till the end of regulation time. They were happy sitting back while the Spaniards ran out of steam. In extra time, with fresh legs on the field, Spain still couldn't find that goal they were so desperately looking for. This meant that the game will go on to the penalties, and even in the penalties, Morocco didn't concede a goal, whereas they scored thrice, which was more than enough to knock out the 2010 world champions. This meant Morocco became the first team from Africa after Ghana in 2010 to qualify for the quarterfinal of the World Cup. We all know Morocco's journey didn't end there. They had another upset up their sleeves, but this round of 16 fixture will remain as one of the games of the tournament. So that's Spain versus Morocco at number 4. Moving on to number 3, we got the final of this World Cup between Argentina and France. Don't get me wrong, this was no doubt the best World Cup final in living memory. But the only reason that I have put this game down at number 3 instead of somewhere higher on the list is that the brand of football that was on display was not that great. France didn't even turn up in the first 80 minutes. Before they could make the comeback for the ages, France, to be honest, were playing rubbish football. The game was pretty much one-sided for most of regulation time. France didn't have a single shot at goal. Messi and co were cruising before France was awarded a penalty in the 80th. This set in motion a chain of events that led to a madcap finish. It was hysteria all around when Mbappe equalized in the very next minute. Messi scoring a third for Argentina in extra time before Mbappe scoring another from the penalty spot, and the penalty shootout that followed. All these events will remain a part of football folklore now. I agree, this game is still fresh in all our minds, and it's probably among the best ever finals ever played. But for me, it was just not the best game of the tournament. So that's Argentina versus France at number 3. Moving on to number 2, we got a quarter-final game between Argentina and the Netherlands. In the last 7 editions, Argentina had reached the semi-finals of the World Cup only once. So this game was no wonder important for Argentina. The Netherlands were no pushovers. They didn't lose a single game in the group stages, whereas Argentina lost its opening game against Saudi Arabia. Argentina was slowly regaining their composure, but they were yet to face a formidable opponent, and the Netherlands were such an opponent. Like we saw in the World Cup final, Argentina were 2-0 ahead till the 80th, with a goal in each half, and Messi scoring again for Argentina. But unlike France, the Netherlands were playing better football. They were relentless in their attack and much more coordinated than the French were. The Dutch got one back in the 83rd, but they were still desperately looking for an equalizer. The on-field skirmishes added to the drama, as frequent stoppages in play meant there was 12 minutes of added stoppage time, and it was in the very last minute that the Dutch scored the equalizer, and it was absolute hysteria in the Dutch camp. There were no goals scored in an equally entertaining extra time. The penalty shootout that followed saw Argentina better their already stellar record in the penalty shootouts at the World Cup, which also meant Emiliano Martinez could rub it in the Dutch fans' face with his celebration. All in all, an entertaining fixture. So that's Argentina versus Netherlands at number 2. And now, without further ado, we are going to talk about the number 1 game on this list of the top 5 games of this World Cup. We have got the quarter-final fixture between Brazil and Croatia. Among all the 64 games, the brand of football on display in this particular game was just phenomenal. Brazil were hot favorites to win this tournament, and needless to say, favorites to win this game. Brazil were playing like a dream in this tournament. Their opening group game against Serbia had set the World Cup alight. Having said that, Brazil have been knocked out of the quarterfinals on 3 out of the 4 previous editions. Croatia had to do something special in order to beat Brazil, and something special they did. Luka Modric was the centerpiece of Croatia's strategy, as the Croats thwarted off every Brazilian attack with ease, counter-attacking with equal conviction. 90 minutes of regulation time were simply brilliant. The match went on to extra time, where Neymar's brilliance saw Brazil score the opening goal in the 105th. What all thought this would be it, and Croatia won't recover in time to score the equalizer with tired legs running around, Croatia's resilience that we saw throughout this game came to the fore one more time, with Petkovic's hit deflected off a defender saw the back of the net, and sending the Croatian camp into frenzy. This meant that the game went to penalties. The Croats seemed to have mastered the art of winning games that go to extra time or penalties of late, so they seemed pretty confident heading into the shootout. This ultimately proved to be the difference, as Croatia shut out Brazil as they scored 4 on a trot, whereas Brazil missing 2 out of their 4, making the 5th kick inconsequential. All in all, a brilliant game. The best of the tournament for me.
So, whom do you think? Sorry, cricket game. What did I miss?